So before we start, I'd like to introduce Professor Gollwitzer to all of you. So he is a renowned social psychologist and whose research interests including justice, revenge, immorality, science communication, and also research methods. But today he's going to share his thoughts and also his interesting research findings about justice sensitivity. So this is a topic that he has studied since many years ago. So he is clearly an expert in this topic. To improve the accessibility, your accessibility to this lecture, I will try to resume Professor Mario's lecture in Bahasa Indonesia in the Google Documents that you should have seen the link in the chat box. Please allow some slight inaccuracies for the summary, but you are very welcome to put your comments. So you can click on the sentence that you'd like to add some comments on the same documents. So Professor Gollwitzer will present his lecture for about 1 hour and will answer your questions afterwards. And if you have comments, thoughts, and questions, please do that. Please drop them in the chat box or after the lecture. If you'd like to ask Professor Gollwitzer directly,
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Mr. Mario and everyone. We are still waiting for Ibu Amelia Zain to come back to this webinar because maybe due to the low connections, we will wait for her maybe for 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. So it's you think it's Amelia's connection? It's not anyone else's internet connection?
Yeah, I think it's
you
due to
me?
the. Yeah, I can hear you clearly,
wonderful.
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry about the sudden disappearance. So my son has accidentally pushed off my laptop. I'm so sorry about that. Right, so I'll continue. So basically, Professor Gollwitzer will present his lecture for around 1 hour, and we will answer your questions afterwards. So if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, please do so by dropping your comments in the chat box. So if you'd like to do that in Bahasa Indonesia, you are very welcome to do that. Kalau kalian mau tanya dalam Bahasa Indonesia, silahkan lakukan itu. I will translate that for you. So there's no reason if you'd like to ask questions, just please do it. So again, if you'd like to access my notes in Bahasa Indonesia, my summary in Bahasa Indonesia, just click on the link in your chat box. So yeah, so basically, Professor Gollwitzer, now the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this, and thank you all for being here. I would love to be in Indonesia right now with you. I've been to Surabaya once, and I enjoyed it very much. It was a very positive experience for me. And yeah, I would love to, but it's too far away from Munich, so I'm sorry for doing this online only. Okay. Again, thanks for inviting me, Amelia. What I prepared is an overview of the stuff of the research that we've been doing on justice sensitivity, and I will start sharing my screen, and I hope you can see it. If you cannot see it, type something in the chat. But it seems to be okay. All right, so the title of this talk is the Janus-Faced nature of justice sensitivity, and Janus is a Roman god it's a very ancient figure from the Roman Empire, and it's the god of the beginning and the end. And this is not actually what motivated me to call this Janus-Faced, but Janus is in depictions very often depicted with a double face, as you can see in the picture here. Janus-Faced has this mirror image or reverse mirror image depiction. It has a double face. And this is, I think, what applies to justice sensitivity, the personality trait too. It has a double face. And I will explain to you, or I would like to explain to you, what this double-facedness in justice sensitivity means. Let me start by explaining what justice sensitivity is. Well, let's start with a truism. People do care about justice. We know that people care about justice. Justice is an inevitable aspect of people's everyday life. But some people care more than others. Some people are more sensitive to justice and injustice in their daily lives than others. And a little bit more specifically, that manifests in 4 indicators: the frequency with which people experience injustice, the strength of the emotional reactions to injustice, such as moral emotions such as anger, moral outrage, but also shame, embarrassment, guilt, and so on. So emotional reactions can be more or less strong, and that differs between people. Third, the intrusiveness of justice-related thoughts, the amount to which justice ruminates within you, and the motivation to restore justice. So you can think of justice sensitivity as a dimension where people have a high versus low, or more or less high versus low standing. And the 2 pictures you see here are actually not accurate. The person on the left side is Angela Merkel, our acting chancellor in Germany. I put her on the justice sensitivity low pole of the continuum. I don't think that's true, actually. I think she has a much stronger justice sensitivity. But here in that picture, she has this facial expression as if she wouldn't care. The guy on the other hand, or the other side, at the other pole of the continuum, acts as if he really cared about justice. Not sure whether that's actually the case, but you get the idea. Justice sensitivity is a continuum, and people can be more or less highly located on that continuum. Okay, we know a lot about justice sensitivity. We know, for example, that it is a personality trait. There are people differ, and these differences are stable over time and consistent across situations. These are results from a study that we conducted many years ago. We simply wanted to find out if justice sensitivity is a personality trait. We measured justice sensitivity multiple times in the same people at multiple occasions with multiple methods. And then we took the observed variance and we decomposed the variance into different sources, and by means of a model that is called, or is referred to as latent state trait modeling. And as you can see here, the results of that decomposition show that a large majority of the variance is due to stable, that means timely stable and cross-situationally stable individual differences. So yes, it is a personality trait. What we also know is that justice sensitivity predicts justice-related behavior. And just to give you some findings from the many findings in the literature, justice sensitivity predicts students' protest about an unfair course assignment at university. It predicts work satisfaction and organizational citizenship behavior, or the opposite, counterproductive work behavior after experiencing organizational procedural injustice from, for example, nasty treatment by their superordinates. It predicts vengeful intentions, so it has really a predictive impact on behavior when it comes to justice. So the question arises, is justice sensitivity really a genuine concern for justice? Does it even, and this is maybe an important piece of information for you, justice sensitivity was developed with the intention to come up with a measure for the justice motive, the extent to which people really care about justice. That was the intention. And the question now is justice sensitivity an indicator for the justice motive? Is it a genuine concern for justice? And the answer is, well, that depends. And it depends on the perspective from which people from which people experience injustice, or more specifically, it depends on the perspective from which people are justice sensitive. And I mean, people can be justice sensitive from the victim's perspective. They can be sensitive to injustice that befalls or that affects themselves personally, that we call victim sensitivity. But they can, apart from that, also be sensitive to injustice that occurs to other people. So they themselves have a neutral observer's perspective, and still you can be more or less sensitive to injustice that occurs to other people. We call that observer sensitivity. And finally, you can be more or less sensitive to injustice from the perspective of somebody who profits from injustice. That is the beneficiary perspective. We call that beneficiary sensitivity. And there are scales to measure each of these perspectives. And here are item examples from these scales. For example, an item from the victim sensitivity scale is, it bothers me when others receive something that ought to be mine. So I am the victim of an unfair allocation of resources, and it bothers me, or it makes me angry, or I cannot easily bear it. That's the intrusiveness. And you can formulate the same items from different perspectives. For example, from the observer's perspective, and one of the items is, it worries me when someone has to work hard for things that come easily to others. I'm not involved, but I just observe the injustice, but still it worries me. I ruminate a long time. It gets me down to see someone criticized for things that I overlook with others. And then a beneficiary perspective, it disturbs me when I receive what others ought to have. I am the beneficiary of an unfair allocation. I have a bad conscience, it bothers me, and so on. You get the idea. And now coming back to the question, does justice sensitivity really measure a concern, a genuine concern for justice? Well, it depends on the perspective. First of all, we know that if we look at the internal correlations between the three perspectives, victim, observer, beneficiary, what we see is they are correlated. They are positively correlated with each other. So that means there is something common lying beneath all of these perspectives. So yes, maybe it is a common concern for justice. However, what you see here also in the correlations is the observer and the beneficiary perspectives. They are very, very highly correlated. The victim perspective is a little bit less highly correlated. It gets more interesting if you look at correlations between the three perspectives and outside external criteria. And what you see here is that the observer and the beneficiary perspective are correlated with a number of socially desirable traits: role-taking capabilities, empathy, social responsibility, modesty, and the big five trait, agreeableness. All of these are positively valued traits. The victim perspective, on the other hand, is correlated with a number of socially undesirable, or let's say socially difficult traits: jealousy, paranoia, vengeance, neuroticism, and it's negatively correlated with interpersonal trust. Also, the observer and the beneficiary perspective predict equal split of cooperative behavior, such as equal split offers in a dictator game, or solidarity with the disadvantaged, positive behavior, pro-social behavior. The beneficiary perspective and the observer perspective are negatively correlated with immoral behavior. Exactly the opposite is true for the victim perspective. The victim sensitivity perspective predicts immoral choices. How is that reconcilable with the idea that justice sensitivity reflects a genuine concern for justice? And that's an interesting question. And this is a question that we've been trying to address. Almost specifically, the two questions that we're trying to address in our research is, what does it psychologically mean to be justice sensitive from a victim's perspective? What is that? What is the psychology behind victim sensitivity? And what are the cognitive processes and the emotional processes and the motivational processes underlying the effect on their moral behavior? All right, let me try to give you an answer to these questions. And please, if you want to interrupt me because you have a question or cannot follow, please do interrupt me, it's no problem. Okay, the theory we developed to answer those questions has been shaped into a model. We call it the SEMI model. It's an abbreviation for sensitivity to mean intentions. And okay, this is what you see here is not the model, because it would be a stupid model. But the idea is that victim sensitivity, that perspective, that justice sensitivity perspective, reflects a specific sensitivity for contextual cues that are associated with meanness, untrustworthiness. So if you are victim sensitive, you are particularly you have a low threshold to react to cues in your environment which are associated with the notion that people want to exploit you, people want to take advantage of you, people want to treat you badly. So all of these, so it's like an alarm system. It's like a vigilant alarm system that people run around with in their minds. And this is what is meant by sensitivity to contextual cues associated with untrustworthiness. And as soon as a victim-sensitive person is confronted with these cues, and I'll tell you in a little while what these cues can be, we think that a particular mindset is activated. We call it the suspicious mindset, and it consists of three elements: hostile interpretations. So you tend to believe that people act out of malevolent intentions. Second, an avoidance motivation. You want to leave the scene, and legitimizing cognition. So anything uncooperative, anything socially undesirable that you intend to do is legitimized, for example, by the cognition that you would be stupid to do otherwise. So one aspect of the suspicious mindset is, I have the right to be uncooperative because otherwise I would risk, I would be exploited. Okay, final element of that model is not always does a suspicious mindset translate into uncooperative behaviors. Sometimes, for example, if a person has high moral standards, if a situation consists of strong norms to be cooperative, or if it occurs in a group with a strong social identity, then so these are buffering effects. Under that circumstances, suspiciousness does not translate into uncooperative behavior. But if these factors are absent, suspiciousness predicts or leads to uncooperativeness. All right, we can derive a number of empirical hypotheses from that model, from the SEMI model. And one hypothesis is, I call it hypothesis A. One hypothesis is that even slight cues, even minor cues of untrustworthiness make people high in victim sensitivity less cooperative. And let me show you two studies which we conducted that show that this is the case. So here's the overview. The study I'd like to show you is the first one and the last one. After learning about potential free riders in a public goods game, people high in victim sensitivity contribute less money to a public good than those at low victim sensitivity. And let me start with that study. In that study, we played a public goods game, and I don't know if you are familiar with the public goods game. A public goods game is, let's assume you are a participant in such a study, and you learn that you play this game. It's an economic game. You play it with 3 other participants, so you're a group of 4. And you know that each of you don't see each other, you don't know who the others are, but you know that there are 3 other people, so you're a group of 4. You know that each of you has an initial endowment of 20 money units. Do you see the stack of coins here? Let's assume they're money units, euro cents or whatever. And the rule is now each person, each player can contribute an amount to a common project, a public good, like a tax system, right? And whatever is in the public good at the end, so the amount of money units in the public good will be doubled and then distributed equally among the 4 players. Let me give you 2 examples for this. Let's assume that every player has 20 money units and decides to invest 10 into the public good. That means each of them keeps 10 for themselves. So now we have 40 money units in the public good. They are doubled. So we have 80 in the public good, and the 80 will be distributed equally among the 4 players. So each player walks home with 30 money units, more than they had in the beginning. So it's profitable to invest in the public good, but only if the others contribute as well. Let me give you another example. Let's assume that there is one player, player B, who decides to invest nothing into the public good. He's a free rider, right? But let's assume that the other players contribute 10 to the public good. So we have 60 in the public good, which is doubled and then divided equally among the 4 players. And what happens now is that B, the free rider, walks home with 35 money units, the majority of the money. So actually it paid off to be a free rider, right? And that is the dilemma of a public good. Investing money into the public good makes sense, it is profitable, but only if the others contribute too. And contributing less can be a rational strategy too. What we did in that study is we had participants play that game, and before they did so, we showed them sample rounds, 4 sample rounds. And what we did is we manipulated the amount of free riding behavior they saw in those sample rounds. We had one condition in which participants saw 4 versions of the game in which everybody contributed at least 10 money units. So no free riders, okay? We had a second condition in which participants saw that some of the players, what's the past term for free road? I don't know. They showed free riding behavior, but only some. It was only a minor cue. And then we had a third condition in which many players in these sample rounds showed free riding behavior. We measured justice sensitivity from all perspectives, including the victim perspectives, 4 months before they played that game. And we could match the data from the justice sensitivity measurement with the data from the public goods game. And let me show you the results. In blue, you see the results, the average investment for people who are relatively low on victim sensitivity, 1 standard deviation below the mean. And in red, it's the result for people high in victim sensitivity, 1 standard deviation above the mean. And what you see, if there are no free riders in the sample rounds, everybody's pretty generous in their own games, right? They invest 12 out of their 20 money units, which is pretty pro-social, which is pretty cooperative, you would say. No difference between high and low victim sensitivity. But when they witness that some players violated the rule or showed that free riding behavior, it's particularly the people high in victim sensitivity that react to this, that start becoming less cooperative in their own games. And that is exactly what this hypothesis A means. Even slight cues of untrustworthiness lead to uncooperative behavior if you are high in victim sensitivity. me show you a second study. Because you could also reformulate the hypothesis that even invalid cues of untrustworthiness lead to uncooperativeness among people high in victim sensitivity. In that study, we had participants play a commercial computer game, and it's a game. It's a video game that has two different names, one for the American market and one for the European market. In the American market, it's called Bully, because it basically deals with being bullied at school, and the main character is Jimmy Hopkins. That's this guy here, and he's being bullied constantly by other people. And the goal of the game is to defend yourself and to get along with your fellow students and so on. On the European market, the game is called Janus-Faced, as you can see here. This game is nice because it's not nice, it's not a nice game, but it's a very useful game for our purposes because it contains a lot of cues associated with untrustworthiness. You constantly encounter students who are really, really mean and nasty and untrustworthy and behave in that way towards you. And what we did is we took two in-game missions from that game. One in-game mission in which participants as players were really strongly victimized. In that in-game mission, they made friends with another in-person character, and it turned out in that mission that the other guy was just cheating you all the time and was trying to take advantage of you, although you thought he was your friend. So a really strong cue of victimization. And then we had a control game, in-game mission that was just as engaging, just as difficult, and just as playful as the other in-game mission. After playing that video game, Janus-Faced, for 20 minutes, participants played a trust game with a fellow participants. A trust game works that way. You have money, you can invest that money to another person, your investment will be doubled, and then the other person can decide whether he or she wants to split the money with you. So for example, if let's say I play this game with Amelia and we both have €1 and I start and I decide to transfer my euro to Amelia, and that will be doubled. So Amelia has her own euro plus the doubled euro from me. So she has 3 now. She has €3. And now it's her turn to decide whether she wants to split the 3 with me. So we each have 150, or if she wants to keep all of it for herself, right? So that's why it's called a trust game. Investing money, transferring money to the other person pays off, but only if I expect the other person to split the money with me. We measured victim sensitivity before, and again, the results are in line with that hypothesis. After playing the victimization game, in which cues of untrustworthiness were really salient, people high in victim sensitivity trusted their fellow participant less than those who were low in victim sensitivity. No such difference in the control game condition. So the idea is, and I hope you can follow, the idea is that if you're victim sensitive, you are not per se a nasty person, but what you do is, this is how your mind works. You are particularly sensitive to all cues that are associated with being taken advantage of, being treated unfairly, and so on. And if these cues are present, you immediately shut off your cooperative intentions. Okay, another hypothesis is that individuals high versus low in victim sensitivity react specifically to untrustworthiness cues, not to trustworthiness cues. And let me just show you it's a very easy, very simple study. We showed participants pictures of that were computer generated. It was these pictures, and as you can probably guess from the 3 pictures you see here, these pictures differed in their facial expression. Some of them had a not severely but slightly negative, unfriendly facial expression. The guy on the left here. We had faces with a neutral expression, And we had faces with a positive, with a friendly facial expression. And we did that in order to check whether people high in victim sensitivity react to all of these facial expressions sensitively or only to the unfriendly faces. And that would be our hypothesis. And we very simply, we showed them the faces and then asked them, would you trust that person on a scale from 1 to 6? And I mean, not surprisingly, people trusted the friendly face more than the unfriendly face. But if you are high in victim sensitivity, then you are particularly, let's say, cautious when you encounter somebody with an unfriendly face, right? It's no difference between high-low victim sensitivity in friendly faces. It's only in the unfriendly faces where the victim sensitivity leads to more cautious, more careful, more avoiding behavior. Okay, and this is a study in which participants played a board game. Don't know if you know games. I mean, like this is in Germany. Is so games of this sort are sometimes called "Mensch, ärger dich nicht." Man, don't be angry. Will be the literal translation. And and that was a computer game in that study, and participants played in a team together with another person against a single player. So there were 3 players per game, right? And they played the game, and we manipulated what happened during the game. We had one game in which participants were confronted with a team partner who turned out to be very egoistic. Let me briefly explain to you what we did. We told participants before the game that, well, 2 things. First of all, as a team, your task is to collect as much points as possible as a team. So 2 people in a team try to get as many points as possible. But then again, we will count your points individually. So, for example, in that example here, this player Mario has 12 points and Stephanie has 8 points. We're still a team, but our points are counted individually, and the individual points are then translated into raffle tickets. So at the end, Mario get 12 raffle tickets and Stephanie gets 8 raffle tickets. So at the very end, it's an individual reward that we get. Now, in one condition of the game, participants were teamed up with a partner who behaved pretty selfishly, pretty egoistically towards participants, although they were a team. Then we had a second condition in which the single player, remember, participants were in a team with 2, and they played against a single player, a third player. And in the second condition, it was the single player who had many opportunities to reduce points from team members. And what the single player did is he always reduced points from the participant's account, right? Nasty behavior, but I mean, that's the rule of the game. It's everybody's fighting for points here. And then we had a third condition in which the team partner always had good luck. So we have, I don't know if you saw it before, here's a stack of cards, and one of the event cards on that stack was you win 5 points, you win 2 points, or you win 10 points. And the lucky partner, many times drew one of these lucky punch cards. So you win 2. And participants themselves, they never won anything. Right? So they even drew cards which said, you lose 2 points, but it's bad luck, it's fate. Okay. And we were interested in what makes people angry, depending on their victim sensitivity. And the results show what really makes victim sensitive people angry is the egoistic partner. Not so much the lucky opponent, because he's basically playing by the rules. Not so much the lucky partner, because it's bad luck. But what really, forgive my language, pisses victim-sensitive people off is being partnered with somebody who violates team rules. Okay. Okay, and then there's evidence for the hypothesis that a suspicious mindset mediates the effect of victim sensitivity on uncooperative behavior. For example, I won't go into details with that. I'll only show you one one study, one example from it's not from our lab, but from Gerlach's lab. People high in victim sensitivity are less forgiving towards a friend or a partner because they do not believe that the partner's or the friend's apology is sincere. So they are more skeptical whether other people really mean what they say, right? That's absolutely in line with the idea of victim sensitivity activating a suspicious mindset. Also, people high in victim sensitivity are more resistant against political reforms because they are suspicious about politicians, or specifically in that study, suspicious about the initiators' intentions for the reform. That's from political psychology. After being treated unfair, and finally, after being treated unfairly by an alleged partner, people high in victim sensitivity cooperate less in a trust game because they expect unfairness more. Let me just show you the Gerlach et al. Study, and just one finding from that study. So participants in that study read a vignette, and in that vignette, they were told that they had a close friend, and that close friend did something badly. For example, participants were told that they overhear a conversation with their friend, and in that conversation, the friend is making fun of them, right? So nasty remarks. So, and then the story goes on, and participants confront the friend and say, "Hey, I heard what you said. Why did you do that?" And then the friend says, "Oh, it was apology. I really ask for your forgiveness. I'm sorry. I won't do it again." And so participants read that story, including what the authors call reconciliatory behavior. So yeah, I'm sorry. And they measured mistrustful interpretations in the sense that the apology is not serious. What he or she really wants to hurt my feelings, or that doesn't care about my feelings. They also measured self-protective legitimizing cognition, such as if I don't react, then he or she will do it again. And so on. And the dependent variables were vengeful intentions, I make him pay for what he did, or I make her pay for what she did. Avoidance, I will cease to, I will avoid contact with her or him from now on. And benevolence is willingness to reconcile. And what you see here is victim sensitivity predicts vengeful behavior, it predicts avoidance behavior, and it negatively predicts willingness to reconcile. And these effects are mediated by mistrustful interpretations, the apology is not sincere, and self-protective legitimizing cognitions, such as if I don't do it, he or she will do it again. So nice evidence for a mediating effect of a suspicious mindset on cooperative versus uncooperative behavior. All right, good. So, and recently, I mean, the studies I have showed you are, if you can tell from, you could tell from the years, they are rather, they are almost, yeah, a little bit old. I mean, we have 2021 now. So let me just give you an upshot what happened in the meantime. We have been looking at victim sensitivity in intergroup contexts. And we found, for example, that victim-sensitive individuals react more sensitively to cues of intergroup exploitation. You know that one of the topics that is currently debated in Germany and in Europe and in many, many other countries too is migration and reactions towards migrants, towards people who come to Germany or come to Europe because they flee from war, from really bad conditions in their home countries. And what we could show in one study is that victim-sensitive people react more with a greater intergroup anger and a greater intergroup angst That's an emotion reflecting the extent to which people are afraid of, are just being afraid of what's happening there. And victim-centered people have more intergroup angst to the extent that they believe that migrants are not coming because they really suffer in their home country, but because they merely are coming to Germany for economic reasons. So they want our money. They don't want protection. They want our money. This is what victim-sensitive people think and what they react to. What fits here, what is in line with that idea, is that victim-sensitive people support populist ideology. They are more receptive to populist narratives, and they tend to vote for right-wing political parties. Probably because victimhood is something that these right-wing political parties are using in their campaigns, in their narratives, right? Other research from developmental psychology shows that victim-sensitive individuals show maladaptive behaviors such as more aggression, higher willingness to discriminate, more antisocial behavior, even during childhood and adolescence. So it's not a phenomenon that occurs only in later life. It even occurs during childhood and adolescence. Very recent research shows that victim-sensitive individuals are envious about their colleagues' salary, even if an organization has a very transparent payment policy. And what we are working on right now, at the moment, is how does victim sensitivity play out in a group context? So what happens if you have a team or a group or a lab, and you have one highly victim-sensitive individual in that group or team or lab? Does that affect the entire group's outcomes? And we show, yes, it does. And this is the last finding that I'd like to show you. Stick with me, and then I'll finish. What we did in that study is we created artificial groups. So we invited 150 students to our lab. We created 3-person groups. So we had almost 50 groups in total, 50 groups with 3 people each. We measured individuals, the group members' victim sensitivity. And then we took the victim sensitivity score of the most victim sensitive member as a independent variable. So we took that's what we call VS max, the maximum score, the victim sensitivity score of the highest victim sensitive member in the group. That's the predictor, okay? And then we had in these groups, the groups first got to know each other. They played an entertaining game, solved puzzles, and so on. And in the end, in the last phase of the experiment, the 3-person groups played a public goods game. Maybe you remember the public goods game I explained to you in the beginning. 3 people, each has 20 money units. They can invest the 20 money units into a public good. It pays off to do so, but only if you think that the others will contribute to the public good as well. Otherwise, you run a danger of being exploited. What we also did is we measured the extent to which participants identified with their group, right? And now I show you the results. So mean contribution to the public good is the dependent variable. The higher, the more cooperation in the group. And what happens is, in groups that consist of a highly victim-sensitive group member, average contributions to the public good are lower, but only if in-group identification is low. If in-group identification is high, so you could say that buffers the negative effects of victim sensitivity. So what we see here is that even one victim-sensitive member in a group can have a detrimental effect to the entire group performance or willingness to cooperate, unless there's a strong social identity. And we think that has implications for teamwork, for student groups, for friendships. Even one victim-sensitive member can disturb the group unless there are buffering effects. So let me sum up. Victim sensitivity or justice sensitivity from a victim's perspective implies a specific sensitivity to untrustworthiness cues in the environment that suggest that other people want to exploit you, want to take advantage of you, want to treat you unfairly. So victim sensitivity is a latent fear of being exploited by others. In the face of such cues, when confronted with such cues, people high in victim sensitivity behave selfish, uncooperatively, but it's a form of preemptive selfishness. They don't behave selfishly because they are nasty people. They behave selfishly because they want to protect themselves. And I mean, the protection is not, I mean, it's a bit exaggerated, right? But it's still, in their minds, it's a way to protect themselves from being exploited. Fear of exploitation is based on, so that is an idea that is maybe hard to swallow, but we think that this fear of exploitation is based on a cognitive dissonance. And it's a dissonance between two things. One is a strong need to trust. We think that victim-sensitive people would love to live in a world in which everybody can be trusted. They would love to live in a world in which there's no risk of being exploited. And they would love to live in a world where there would be no fear of exploitation. But with that strong need to trust comes unfortunately, a generalized expectation that others might be untrustworthy. And it's the combination of these two cognitions, strong need to trust, but a generalized expectations that you cannot trust other people, that creates a dissonance. And that dissonance is the fear of being exploited. And fear of exploitation is like a virus that can easily spread in a group and that impairs group climate, group cooperativeness, and group performance. And so to come back to the picture of Janus, the Roman god, this is why we think that justice sensitivity from a victim sensitivity is a Janus-Faced trait, in the sense that it reflects both a genuine concern for justice. These are people that care about justice, but on the other hand, they have this high fear of being exploited and therefore a selfish orientation. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, Professor Gollwitzer, for your lecture. I think this lecture raises lots of interesting information. So I now get it about the Janus-Faced nature of this justice sensitivity at the end. So it could be, so if a victim they are fear of being exploited, it could be a genuine concern of justice, but it could be also a selfish orientation. So that is why you call it as a Janus-Faced. Right. So, well, yes, we already have some people who wants to ask the questions, but before that, we have Bu Endang. Maybe Bu Endang will give you some greetings before we take up some questions. So maybe Bu Endang will give us one or two words to greet Professor Gollwitzer.
Yeah, thank you, Reski Amelia. Good afternoon, Professor Mario. I think it's good morning. Yeah, from German. Yeah, please accept our greetings from the Faculty of Psychology in Universitas Erlangga, the faculty where Reski Amelia is also one of our lecturer, our wonderful lecturer. Yeah, this year she got just yesterday she got an award from the university as really? The best contributor or the best contributor for writer for journal article in humanities area. Yeah, so I think you have a wonderful student. Yeah, I hope she learned a lot from you and she got many things to bring back to our faculty. And of course, we also very happy, very welcome with your willingness to collaborate with us, to share your knowledge with us. And we hope that in the future you may have chance to come to Surabaya to see our weather here. Again, thank you very much, Professor Mario. And also thank you for all participants, students who are very motivated to learn from you. We hope that this is only the beginning of our long future collaboration. In the next years. Thank you, Mario, and please continue to Amel.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bu Endang. So Bu Endang is our Vice Dean in Research and also Community Partnerships.
Community Development and Internationalization.
Okay, so sorry, Bu. Okay, so we have questions already. So please, Adina, you can speak to Professor Gollwitzer if you have any questions. So please do so.
I just want to give come to Mr. Mario. Thank you for your learning this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Professor Suryanto, who is also our dean. So so we are very grateful to that you are willing to spare your time with us today. So so
thank you very much.
To the questions, perhaps. So Adina, please do so. Please ask Professor Mario directly if you want to do so.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Amelia, for the opportunity. Good evening from here, Professor Mario. I happen to have this condition in my team. I would like to apologize first if it will imply as if I am consulting to you, but it happens that I am in a condition where one of my teamwork seems like she has that victim sensitive trait, as you said. Well, I do not know for precisely if she is a victim sensitive individual because, well, we have to measure it first to confirm. So it does affect the climate of our teamwork. Mm-hmm. She does impairs our group performance, and we don't really know how to do otherwise. I mean, like how to improve the condition of this situation. So would you be kind to maybe give insight to us if it happens to us? I mean, like if there is one individual that maybe indicating that she is or he is a victim sensitive individual. So what can we do about it?
No. That's a very, thank you. That is a very good, very, very good question. And I mean, with that particular case you're presenting, I don't know what I would advise you to do, because it's, I mean, whenever we talk about specific cases, there are these very, very specific conditions under which things, I mean, as in psychotherapy, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the patient. And also here, it depends on the group. But I can give you a general answer to your question. And the general answer to your question is, first of all, there is hope, right? It's what I really believe and what our findings tell us is victim sensitivity is nothing that cannot be shaped. It's nothing that is fixed and a problem and would always be a problem. But our findings show that if victim sensitive people feel safe in their environment, then they are just as cooperative, just as nice, just as pro-social as the others. I didn't show you in detail, but many of our findings show that in the absence of untrustworthiness cues, victim sensitivity has no effect on cooperation. And here's my observation. Often in groups in which there is somebody who displays his or her victim sensitivity, like is a little bit reserved or is a little bit less warm towards others, what the majority of the groups do, and I mean, maybe that resonates with your experience, is they start becoming a little bit less accepting towards that person, a little bit less inclusive. So if somebody acts weirdly in a group, typically the majority of the group says, oh, you don't want it. So it's even a slight moral or social exclusion experience. That exclusion experience feeds the flame, right? It makes the victim-sensitive person even more cautious, even more hostile, even more uncooperative. So I think the solution, hopefully, is try to reduce all cues of untrustworthiness, try to make an inclusive and welcoming atmosphere in the group, even and show that to the victim-sensitive person. And as soon as that person feels safe again, that is a basis for trust building in the group. I hope it works.
It's very interesting. So if I'd like to sum up Mario's answers is that in order to improve coordination, in order to improve cooperative behaviors, we have to remove all possible untrustworthy cues. So kalau kita mau dalam kelompok, kalau misalnya kita kepingin teman kita yang punya high victim sensitivity to be more cooperative again, jadi kalau kepingin mereka itu lebih kooperatif, maka kita harus mengeliminasi, menghapus semua sedikit pun petunjuk ya yang membuat kelompok itu tidak percaya. Jadi ketika lingkungannya aman, mereka akan sama prososial, mereka akan mau membantu, mau kooperatif dengan yang lain. So that would be the point, ya. Okay, so any other questions? So maybe Adina would like to follow up. Any follow-up questions? Okay. Do you have follow-up questions? Maybe before we move on to other participants.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the answer. That's quite insightful for me. So, well, I'd like to ask more, but I think the forum of this time, it's not that proper for me to do the follow-ups. I mean, we'll never get the questions done.
Okay.
So
all right.
Maybe you can go through.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next questions. Yeah. Thank you so much, Adina, for the questions.
Thank you very much.
It's very interesting. So hopefully that the others would learn from the questions and also from the answers. So we have Haikal. Please do speak if you would like to do so.
Yeah, okay. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Professor Mario. I want to ask a question. Is there any correlation between fear of exploitation and cultural or political differences? Because you mentioned that people that has high fear of exploitation tend to be right-wing, but this which explains that fear of exploitation changes a person's or affects a person's political view, but could it be the other way around too?
Oh, I see. Okay. So could it be that people have an ideology, for example, a political ideology leaning towards conservatism, and that makes them more sensitive to cues of untrustworthiness or so? Is that the question?
Yeah, and not just related to political.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yes, that's absolutely. I think that's that can happen too. Basically, probably. With many things, there's a bidirectional. these are bidirectional causal effects here. So you can have an ideology that predisposes you to be anxious and fearful. But on the other hand, people can become more conservative because they have that fear. So it probably goes in both directions. Yeah. Yeah, very good question. Thanks.
Okay, so the correlation is bidirectional. So you could be very conservative because you are more sensitive towards injustice, but it could be the other way around.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, that's interesting. I found it interesting. So any questions? Any other questions that you'd like to raise to Professor Gollwitzer? No, if there's no questions, I actually have questions, if I may. So you said that the thing that I'd like to focus on is that you argue that justice sensitivity is a is a form of trait, is a personality trait. So I would like to, I'm quite interested in knowing, is there any study that tried to investigate justice sensitivity in a longitudinal form, which also could lead to conclusion in which period of in period of our lives that justice sensitivity is more improved, or maybe comparing justice sensitivity in childhood, in adolescence, or in adult, and which periods of life has more influence in shaping our justice sensitivity?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question too. And I mean, there's this one group in Berlin that is starting to investigate justice sensitivity during childhood and adolescence. Bondu is the name that appeared on some of the slides I used, and she is investigating how justice sensitivity shapes over the life course. And what we know so far is there's not much change in terms of mean differences. It's basically so on average. There's no such thing as victim sensitivity goes up and then it goes down and then goes up again. That's not the case. But what we see is that there are phases in one's life in which victim sensitivity becomes more stable, so the trait consistency is stronger in certain phases of one's life. For example, it starts to become stable at the age of 13, 14 years, right? So the idea is something happens there that creates, I mean, basically the way we measure personality traits is we are self-reports, right? So in order to have a valid self-report and a reliable self-report and a valid measure for that, people have to have a mental representation of their trait. And probably at the age of 13, 14, children, adolescents start getting an idea of how victim sensitive they are. And why is that the case? Probably because at that age, peer relationships become more relevant than, for example, relationships with parents. That's the beginning of teenager. So they start becoming teenagers, and probably it's relationships with peers and friends where something like trustworthiness is negotiated that makes people more or less victim sensitive.
That's very interesting. So so basically our individuals' interactions with people outside their families would perhaps influence how they shape justice sensitivity. It's also influence how they perceive untrustworthiness, and also whether a behavior is deemed unfair or fair. Okay, so
right,
that's
yes, yeah.
So the concept of fairness develops when we interact with other people outside our family. That's interesting. So any questions, any other questions if you'd like to raise to Professor Gollwitzer in regards to justice sensitivity? And this is also quite interesting topic in our, perhaps it could be relevant in Indonesia, because we have seen the rising movement of social justice movement politically, and they raise many issues related to some issues like sexual violence, or perhaps economic inequalities, and also environmental exploitation. I think this is something that that is very close to many young people in Indonesia, and also in most European countries. I think the idea of social justice is very, very appealing among young people. So if you have no more questions, you sure that you don't have any questions? So if you don't have any questions, then we are finished. Yeah, then I have to close this interesting guest lecture. You could also rewatch this lecture through the YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and see us, and then look for the faculty YouTube channel. Then you can rewatch the lecture if you'd like to do so. And I would also attach my link, the link to my notes, if you'd like to go through the link. And if you find that this topic interesting, you could also contact Professor Gollwitzer directly if you'd like to do so. So thank you so much, Professor Gollwitzer, for allowing your time to be here and to share the knowledge with us. So thank you so much and good evening for all of you in Indonesia. So bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor Gollwitzer. Thank you, Mbak Amel.
Terima kasih, Bu. Thank you.
Sehat ya, di sana udah kerasa?
Ya, Bu, sudah dingin. It's very cold now. We're entering winter now. So
Okay, yeah, and it's raining here in Surabaya as well.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
How warm is it in Surabaya?
It's about around 30, 31. Yeah, even when it's raining.
It is still
Yeah.
hot.
Quite warm.
Quite hot. Yeah.
Quite
That's
hot.
good that it's raining. That it's raining. Okay, bye. So see you.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Thank you, Mr. Mario.